Hey everybody, Tony here with another concert review, and this time it's Johann Sebastian Bach's St. John's Passion, or known in German as Johannes Passion. This was shown live from the Berliner Philharmoniker, and it was screened at the Cinestar Cubix Movie Theaters at Alexanderplatz. On the podium was the magnificent Sir Simon Rattle. The production was by the great Peter Sellers, and the soloists were Camilla Tilling, Magdalena Kojena, Topi Letipu, Mark Padmore, Roderick Williams, and Christian Gerhaher. The chorus was the Rundfunkchor Berlin, and the chorus master was Simon Halsey. Now, before the concert began, there was an interview with Sir Simon Rattle, Peter Sellers, and some British interviewer that I don't really know the name of. They were basically talking about the complexities of this oratorio, such as the crucifixion, the themes of crucifixion and religion, and Jesus' death, and how the people needed a savior. They were basically talking a lot of philosophical and religious themes behind this oratorio, and also the biblical texts of everything that was implied in this, well, piece of music. And especially with the music itself, of how visceral it is compared to that of Bach's more famous work, or famous passion, the St. Matthew's Passion. Now, Sir Simon Rattle also told about his experience with this particular oratorio, as at the age of 30, he's never even heard about this oratorio until he listened to a cassette tape. And he stated that it was almost not like Bach, but almost like Stravinsky in his early years. But when he listened to the chorus, he stated that it was really Bach. And just by simply listening to St. John's Passion in its entirety, he definitely felt that it was Stravinsky's Rite of Spring of the 1700s. And Peter Sellers also talked about this particular production that he made. It was basically not focusing on theatrical movements or theatricality, but also mostly on the music. He basically wanted to focus on the music since it does speak to the heart in such a powerful manner. And he does talk about a lot of the many powerful messages behind St. John's Passion, like Jesus' crucifixion and the townspeople's cries for Jesus Christ to be crucified, Pontius Pilate, and everything that was written in the Bible. They were basically talking a lot about philosophical ideas and religious ideas as well. There are a lot of complexities in this piece, and as soon as they worked together, they really felt that this was definitely one of Bach's most complex piece of music. I mean, with the chorus and the soloists, it's definitely a great challenge emotionally and somewhat on a technical level for every performer that dares to perform St. John's Passion. And when the concert began, I was completely taken aback by the opening scene, with the Rundfunkchor Berlin moving their hands, moving every gesture that they did, and the way that they opened the evening with such a magnificent chorus was just breathtaking. It was just beautiful beyond belief. I was almost in tears because of just how powerful the melody is and just how extremely stirring and emotional. Just wow, I was completely speechless. It is just so stirring. It's just so emotional. You really get the feel that these are townspeople who really long for a savior, who really long for freedom. And it's just so heart-rendering and equally as beautiful. And Peter Sellers really outdid himself this time with this production. And it kind of shows that less is truly more. I mean, as I've watched the entirety of this production, I was definitely just taken off the edge of my seat. I was completely glued to the chorus of how they sang, how they um, collaborated together, how they blended really, really well. And this really makes for a very powerful experience, both musically and spiritually. And everything about it was just beautiful. The singers, especially, were all in their top game. Camilla Tilling, who sang the soprano solo, had such a silvery, light lyric soprano voice that was able to soar beautifully on all the registers. Her voice was truly that homogeneous, and she sang with a lot of emotion and conviction. You could really see the anguish in her eyes, the emotion in her singing, everything that makes her solos just so breathtakingly awesome. She's absolutely fantastic. And basically, my experience with Miss Tilling was, well, basically listening to um, Ilia's aria Sefireti Lusinghieri, which is from Mozart's Idomeneo, and hearing her as the soprano solo of this oratorio was definitely breathtakingly gorgeous. Equally gorgeous was the mezzo-soprano soloist Magdalena Kojena. Now, this is a name that I've heard so many times, and basically I first listened to her when I was 10 years old when she sang a love song called Laska. I felt that her voice was very beautiful, and here in St. John's Passion, I definitely felt that her voice had this smoky, sexy timbre to it that is able to soar beautifully on all of the registers, and just listening to her voice was just absolutely fantastic. She was able to convey such beauty, such complexity, and such finesse. And it was just awesome. She was definitely an awesome mezzo soprano, and she was also very convincing of how she sang the text. Everything was sung with such great passion and conviction. And then we have Topi Letipu, who sang the arias, and I definitely felt that his voice was very solid. Sure, his high notes at times could use a little polishing, but that can be forgiven. I definitely felt that he had such fantastic technique, and he was able to sing all of those legato and staccato lines really beautifully, and he had such a magnificent timbre. His voice was really built for singing Mozart, Handel, and a lot of the composers of the 1600s and 1700s, and probably even bel canto. And he definitely outdid himself this time with such a beautiful instrument. I haven't really listened to Topi Letipu a lot, but I've heard a lot of fantastic things about him. And this is definitely one of his best performances that I've ever seen. And with such a fantastic voice and with such um, a lyrical sounding instrument, I definitely was impressed by just how beautiful his voice was in his arias. And even when he wasn't singing and acting as one of the executioners, I definitely felt his presence. But it's his singing that was just magnificent and just purely gorgeous. And then we have Mark Padmore singing the Evangelist. Now, the thing about the Evangelist is that it's a really tough part to sing, as in you have a lot of high A's. You have to sing all of those high notes really well, and Mark Padmore was able to hit those high notes beautifully. Sure, his tone is not my cup of tea. It has this type of whitish tone. It was quite white and almost too light to, to even begin with. But it was quite whitish. But he was able to sing with such conviction and such beauty that it's almost hard to spot any screw ups with his voice. I definitely felt that his voice was completely even, and especially in the high notes, which he hit so beautifully and so powerfully. And even though he has this whitish tone that I don't really care for, I definitely felt that he is nonetheless a great musician. He has great musicianship, and his voice and how he handles it truly shows. And we have Roderick Williams singing Jesus Christ. He had such a magnificent, round, and rich baritone voice. He didn't have a lot to sing, but his pianissimo notes when he dies was just so thrilling. I was just extremely speechless of just how well he was able to sing those extra pianissimo notes. And especially in the first part of the oratorio, his voice had this round, rich, sexy baritone voice. And it's quite virile as well. He had such a virility to his voice, and he had such a type of dignity that he has in the role of Jesus Christ. It was truly beautiful just watching him sing and listening to such a burnished timbre that he had in his voice. And even though he was walking barefoot, and it wasn't just him, but also Miss Tilling and Miss Kojena, they also walked barefoot. And going to him, I definitely really loved the timbre of his voice. Like I said, it has a round, rich, and virile color. And he had such a dignified stage presence. Then we have the dual roles of Peter and Pontius Pilate, sung by the fantastic German baritone Christian Gerhache. I've only heard his name a couple of times, and I've seen his Papageno on YouTube, and from what I can gather in my research, he's very fantastic in Lieder, and hearing him was definitely such a huge pleasure. He had such a lovely lyrical baritone voice, and he was able to sing with such emotion and beauty that it was just extremely breathtaking. And he was able to play Peter's anguish and confusion really well, and Pontius Pilate's confusion and dignity very well. So I definitely felt that he was able to use his lyric baritone voice in such a beautiful manner. But more than anything, it was the chorus, the Rundfunkchor Berlin, that definitely were the true stars of the evening. They all sang with such harmony and such power and emotion that the first chorus that they sang was just definitely the highlight for me. It was extremely tear-jerking. I almost was about to cry, and it was so stirring because of just how powerful this melody was. And equally speaking, the orchestra did fantastically, and Sir Simon Rattle did such a fantastic job at leading the orchestra, and Sir Simon Halsey definitely did a magnificent job leading the chorus very well. And I could really see the fire and passion in Sir Simon Rattle's eyes when he leads the orchestra and leads the singers all together. It is just so convincing and just so breathtaking that this was definitely a great evening to watch Sir Simon Rattle and the orchestra and the chorus and all the soloists do their thing, and they did it magnificently. So overall, this was definitely a fantastic evening for a concert, especially that this is also the Lenten season, and what better way to celebrate it with Johann Sebastian Bach's St. John's Passion shown at the Cinestar Cubix Movie Theaters at Alexanderplatz. Everybody did fantastically, and they all did their roles very, very well and with such fire and passion. It was definitely an evening that was so worth it. With great soloists, a great orchestra, a magnificent chorus, and an equally magnificent conductor and director, you have one extremely wonderful and memorable concert, especially in the Lenten season. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune into my next review, which is going to be tomorrow. It's another opera review, and it's Prince Igor, which is live streamed from the Metropolitan Opera House, and that will be shown at the Cinestar Cubix Theaters at Alexanderplatz. Until then, this is Antoni signing off and wishing you all a good night.